What's up guys, and welcome back for another Diablo 3 build guide. Today we're going to be covering the Monk Inna's Exploding Palm build. Now this is a very pleasing build to play, probably the most pleasing build other than maybe Natalia's Fire Rain of Vengeance for me. And the concept is pretty simple. You're going to run into a rift, you're going to tag a bunch of guys with Exploding Palm, and they're going to just blow up. And it's a pretty quick build to play once you get used to it. The gear is not so horrible to try to, get your hands on, with maybe the exception of like a few items that are kind of got some low drop rates. But other than that, it's pretty easy to put together, easy to play, and extremely satisfying. So just like with every build guide, we're going to go through the skills, the Paragon, the gems, the gear, the stats. I'll also be putting a Diablo fans link in the description so that you can refer to that for all of the gear stats, and just kind of it's a quicker way instead of scrubbing through the video numerous times. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. We here on here on Jake Lee, we do a lot of Diablo content, build guides, how-tos, and live streams. Alright guys, starting off with the skills. So our primary is going to be Way of 100 Fists. We're going to use a rune assimilation, and it's just going to be our spirit generator, and it's also going to help up our damage too. So we're going to be keeping that, trying to keep third strikes on the enemies we're hitting, keeping that damage bonus up. And then obviously we have the namesake of the entire build is Exploding Palm. The rune for this is going to be Impending Doom, and where this is going to be a cold ability as well, which will play into our stat choices on gear. But this is going to be our spender, and whenever you tag an enemy with this, you have like 9 seconds, and if it dies, then it does like a crap ton of damage. So really nice. Then our mover is Dashing Strike with rune Blinding Speed, and this is going to be what we use to move around. And also whenever you use it, you'll gain increased dodge, like it says, for 4 seconds after. And you also do damage on guys that you pass through as well. On our number 2, we got Cyclone Strike with rune Implosion. Now this is going to pull all the guys together. So the idea here is we're going to run in, we're going to pull guys together, we're going to start stacking, we're going to start tagging guys with Exploding Palm, keeping the Way of the 100 Fists buff up for increased damage, and just watch everything explode. The next big ability we're going to be using is Mystic Ally with Water Ally. And this is actually going to give us a little bit of damage boost, because your Mystic Allies are going to be doing a lot of damage, and most of the time when you're in rifts, you're going to be just running along tagging guys with Exploding Palms like the trash, and the Mystic Allies will actually take care of a lot of the killing, and just kind of trigger those Exploding Palms if done correctly. And then lastly, you have Epiphany, and we're going to be using rune Desert Shroud. And this is going to increase our spirit regeneration, and also with our damage reduction. Moving on to our passives, we're going to be using Unity. Each ally affected by your mantras increases your damage by 5% up to a maximum of 20%, and 5% increased damage. And then we have the Beacon Aviator, I guess that's how you say it, but it's going to reduce all of our cooldowns by 20%. And then also Harmony. 40% of your single elemental resistances from items instead increases your resistances for all elements. The way this works is like our secondary resistances on our gear, we can actually stack them all on like the same type, and then it'll just give that value to all of our resistances. I haven't really looked a whole lot into what my secondary stats are on my gear, but like I said, this is the gear I have is what you should have. It's not completely optimized for like pushing like 90, 95, but it's a good place to start and give you an idea. The last passive is going to be Seize the Initiative. Dealing damage to enemies above 75% life increases your attack speed by 30% for 4 seconds. And this is important too, because we're going to be using the two-hander in us, so it has pretty slow attack speed, but most of our damage is actually coming from using Exploding Palm, and then just allowing Mystic Allies to take care of a whole lot of the trash. Alright, so let's talk about gear now. So we're going to start off with the cube. Now, some of the stuff can be moved around. I think the bracers and the rings can kind of be shifted around depending on what you have in the cube. Whatever has higher stats, all that stuff like that. Starting off with the weapon in the cube, we're going to be using the Fist of Az. And Exploding Palms on death explosion deal damage is increased by 300%. I prefer to cube this just because that 300% is pretty rock solid. And this is probably the rarest, the hardest to get item for this build. This is actually the last piece I was able to grab. I had everything else, and I was been farming for a few hours to actually find this fist. But for For the armor slot, we're going to be using Bindings of Lesser God. Enemies hit by your Cyclone Strike do take 200% increased damage from Mystic Ally for 5 seconds. This is important because we want to be able to tag guys with Exploding Palm, and then we want to be able to just kind of keep moving and let the Mystic Allies kind of like trigger those Exploding Palm. Alright, so for the Joy slot, we're going to be using Unity. We're going to put another Unity on our follower, and then it's going to help double our toughness. If you are actually going to be running this in like a group, then obviously you won't have to worry about this. You can probably switch it out for like I don't know, pick something. I mean, we're already wearing Convention of Elements, so it's kind of up to interpretation if you have if you're running this in a group. All right, moving on to the rest of our gear. Starting off with the most weirdly titled item in Diablo. So it's Lefebvre's Soliloquy, I assume, and Cyclone Strike reduces our damage taken by 42%, and this can actually roll up to 50%. So it's not bad. And then we're going to be using Gundo gear, which Exploding Palms on Death Explosion applies Exploding Palm, which is really nice because then we tag it once and then it just kind of like chains off. So, and then we're going to be actually wearing our Crudus boots, which is going to double the amount of Mystic Allies that we actually have, which will scale the 6-piece set bonus for Innas. And speaking of Innas, we're going to be using 6 pieces of Innas. We're going to be benefiting from all of these set bonuses here. The first set bonus is increase the passive effect of your Mystic Ally and base passive effect of your mantra by 100%. And then also the 4 set bonus is gain the base effect of all 4 mantras at a time, which you can read into those. It just gives you a lot of benefits all the way around. The big one though, 6-piece set bonus, gain 5 ruined Mystic Allies at all times, and your damage is increased by 125% for each Mystic Ally you have out. And the reason this is important, and the reason why we're using Crudus boots is because normally we'd have 5, but instead we're going to have 10. Also, we're going to be using Convention of Elements, obviously, and everybody knows what Convention of Elements does at this point, so yeah. Alright, we're also going to be using the Endless Walk set, which while moving we take less damage, and while we're standing still we do more damage. So we're going to be using that in the Traveler's Pledge. As far as our gems are concerned, we're going to be putting an emerald in our weapon. We're going to put diamonds in everything else because we want all resist, we want the CDR, and then for our legendary gems we're going to be using Bane of the Stricken, Bane of the Trapped, and Pain Enhancer. Alright, so moving on to actual stat priorities. Like I said, I'll have a Diablo fans link in the description so you can see these a little bit better, but to kind of give you an idea, for your helm you're shooting for like dex bit EP or dex bit crit, depending on what your crit chance is at. I'd say like if I could roll and I have crit chance, see I don't have crit chance here, but if I have crit chance on this on the ring I'd probably roll it off here for EP, but I needed to pick it up here on the helm. And then on our shoulders we're looking at dex area damage, and then for our gloves normal like crit dex, all that good stuff. And then for our chest piece we were looking at dexterity, vitality, and then Mystic Ally. And then obviously our belt and our pants are gonna be like defensive stats, you know, like we're gonna look at dex, bit, all resist, or armor, something like that. On the boots, you know, we're gonna we want EP damage on this as well. If you do have movement speed here though, you want to take that you want to deduct those points from your Paragon, so you don't wait. For our bracers, we're gonna be going for cold damage because our Exploding Palm is cold, and our Mystic Allies are dealing cold damage, and Dazzling Strike is also gonna be dealing cold damage as well. And on our rings, you're looking at, you know, normal crit stuff, dex crit. You can get some area damage on here if you wanted to as well. And then for our weapon, we're gonna be prioritizing damage percent, and then attack speed and dexterity and all that. Alright, moving on to Paragon here. Core, we're obviously going to be putting points into movement speed first. Like I have 26 out of 50 just because I have 12 on my boots. So you want to try to, like, you know, make sure you're not, you know, overspending here. Then everything else is just into dexterity. For our offensive tab, right, we're going to be, like, I have like 1,000, 1,100 Paragon, so I don't have to really worry about this, but like just to give you an idea, if you're building this up from the beginning of a season or whatever, you're gonna be going like crit chance, crit damage, and then cooldown reduction, or attack speed and cooldown reduction. And then for our defensive side, you're gonna go life, resist all, armor, and then life regen. And then for lastly, for utility, looking at area damage, life on hit, and then resource cost reduction, and then lastly gold fine, like usual. Unless you actually want gold fine, you can do that first if you want. It's all up to you. We'll go over the we'll actually do a rift here. We're gonna do I'm just gonna jump into a 13 because I'm not gonna finish one, but I'm just gonna give you an idea of like the gameplay and how to actually get everything popping. Very simple build to play, not a big deal. You got this. But when you get into the rift, right, you're basically like, you know, looking for density, right? Cyclone strike things together, you know, throw EP on stuff, like Cyclone Strike here, throw EP around. Your Mystic Allies will pretty much take care of a lot of it. Use your Dashing Strike to kind of just get around and everything. Say, boom, boom, boom. Very simple stuff. Let's see if we find a champion pack here real quick. And the Mystic Ally, you pop Mystic Ally on like a champion pack and stuff like that, it'll actually help take them down a little bit quicker. Something like just throwing, you know, Exploding Palm on. And just using my primary just to kind of like keep the buff up for it as much as I can. But really, like this build can actually outscale 13 pretty quick. Hey, come here, get this person here. Sometimes Mystic Allies will just kind of attack whatever they want, so you kind of gotta, you know, micromanage them a little bit. But there's not really much you can do. All right, here's another champion pack here. So we're just gonna use a Cyclone Strike. Just brings everybody in. Just gonna tag up, dead. Tag up and dead. So as you can see, pretty simple. We're not going to finish this rift just because, you know, I don't want this video to go too long. But if you enjoy this this build guide, let me know in the comments. And if you give this a try, let me know what you think. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button for more Diablo content. And hit that like button too. And also the little, I guess it's a cog now instead of a bell. I don't know. They keep changing YouTube on me. But turn on notifications so you know whenever I upload new build guides or how-to guides. But yeah, it's EP.